All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen. So in today's presentation, we are talking a little bit about warming up for hiking. And I'm going to be talking through some simple and effective points on how a hiker can best prepare for their adventures. So to start with, warming up. When it comes down to training and exercise, warming up can be a pretty valuable strategy in lots of different situations. Now, when it comes to actually hiking, like a lot of people are aware that, hey, if I'm going to go do a training session or if I'm going to go to the gym or something like that, I should probably warm up beforehand. But ultimately, when it comes down to actual hiking, probably a very, very, very small percentage of hikers probably do any type of warming up for their adventures. Their typical approach to hiking is we just get to the trailhead and we start walking. Pretty straightforward. And I would say probably 95% of hikers probably take that approach. Now, in all honesty, when it comes down to it, most hikers in the world out there probably don't really need to be worrying about warming up for their actual hiking. Like, yes, training sessions, you still want to be warming up. Things that are a little bit more difficult, a little bit more strenuous. But for most hikers out there, the actual hiking, you probably don't need to be doing a specific warm up. All you need to do is just start walking and the blood will start moving around and you will naturally warm up. Works out pretty well. However, there is a proportion of hikers out there who probably would see some really, really good results from spending a small amount of time doing some specific warm-ups before they actually do start hiking. It's not going to be all hikers. It's not the majority of hikers that need to do this, but there is a small proportion of people who will get some good benefits from this type of thing. And ultimately today is we're talking to those people. So ultimately today we're going to be exploring, which hikers out there should consider having a bit of a warm up before their adventures. We'll talk through how to create a good warm up for hiking, and also just talk you through a few simple exercises and my sort of favorite routine for the trail. So with that being said, let's get into it. So, which hikers should consider a warm-up routine? As I said, the majority of hikers probably don't need to do this, but there are certain hikers out there who would get some really good benefits from spending just 5 to 10 minutes warming up before they actually start walking on the trail. Now, the people that include here is, number one, hikers who have a recurring ankle pain. So people who get foot pain or shin pain or knee pain or hip pain or back pain or any type of pain. Sometimes just having a little bit of dedicated time to mobilizing certain muscles and getting some areas a little bit looser can make a bit of a difference. Specifically for the people who, in that first 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 minutes of their hiking, they are quite uncomfortable. And a lot of people are in that situation where they start hiking, they're very, very uncomfortable, and then eventually they kind of warm into it. But if you're in that situation, sometimes just doing a little bit at the start of the day can make a bit of a difference. Also hikers who may not be in pain, but they do maybe feel tired or restricted or just generally flat at the start of a day. A lot of people fall into that situation. Sometimes hikers, it's not everyone again, but some hikers do get a little bit anxious, a little bit worried about the start of the day. Sometimes they can actually be really worried about a hike or with a group or whatever it may be. So for these people, literally instead of just standing at the trailhead doing nothing and just getting more and more nervous or whatever it may be, just spending, again, 5 to 10 minutes doing some warm-ups can kind of just get the body prepared, just prepare the mind and help manage this. And also hikers who face a bit more of an extreme ascent or descent immediately. So if you're starting a hike and straight away the first half an hour to 60 minutes is straight downhill or straight uphill, maybe worthwhile doing a little bit of warming up before that so you can approach that more extreme incline a little bit more comfortably. Now, ultimately, if you fall into any of these situations, I would really recommend doing a little bit of a warm up for your hiking. If you don't fall into these situations and you don't really care about warming up, you can probably stop the video now. It's probably not really going to be so necessary for you. But if you fall into any of these, this is going to be useful information. So what makes an effective warm-up for hiking? There's 1,000,001 ways to warm up, and we don't have to get too complicated here. Ultimately, what I believe makes an effective warm-up for hiking is, number one, it should include mobilization of key muscles relevant for hiking. So what that means is instead of just doing a bunch of random stretches, a bunch of random exercises, just choose a few key areas of the body which typically are either a little bit tight or need a little bit of loosening before hiking and really hone into them. So typically, when it comes down to hiking, the ankles, the legs, the hips, they're the three big areas. If we can do a bit of mobilization around them just in general, that will go a long way. Now, on top of that is we want to make sure the warm-up is efficient. You don't have to be spending 15, 20, 30 minutes warming up before hiking. It's just not necessary. We want to be short and sharp and time efficient. So you're not at the trailhead having people go past you feeling self-conscious. So you're not there just holding up your friends or your group back. And also it's just super efficient. So if you are running late or anything like that, you can get it all in. Typically, I sort of say 5 minutes is enough. You don't need to do much more than that unless you really enjoy this, but 5 minutes, you can get a lot done. Also, we want to make sure we're probably not getting on the ground. Like a lot of normal stretches a lot of people are familiar with involve us getting on the floor, getting on the ground, which is fine in the gym. It's fine at home, but, at a trailhead, sometimes not super comfortable. And also just not require additional equipment. Obviously, you're not going to be carrying specific things to warm up with or bands or foam rollers or something like that. It's just use what you got. So essentially, I think they're the 4 sort of things that really, really cover an effective warm-up. So with that being said, what I'm going to do now is just share you a few of my favorite exercises. And these exercises I do myself and also get loads and loads and loads of my hikers doing. And I'll just share you a few of my favorite exercises which can make a big difference. So first one I want to cover is the knee to wall stretch. Now the knee to wall stretch is a really, really good one for helping mobilize the calves and the ankles. So essentially just getting a little bit of range of motion through the ankles, helping them get a little bit more comfortable, really beneficial for anyone who gets a bit of foot pain or knee pain, and just really nice just to help the body on steep ascents or descents. Now for this particular exercise, it's really, really straightforward. Basically you've just got one foot in front of the other. You basically just come up against a wall, against a pole. You can do this, against your car or something. And literally all you're doing is just driving the front knee into the wall or into the pole or whatever it may be. And just trying not to let that heel, the heel at the front pop up off the floor. And ultimately just trying to feel a bit of a stretch through the lower calves on that front leg. Really, really simple, but very, very effective. Now, this one's basically just working the lower calves. You should be feeling it there. Some people do this and they kind of feel like the knee's doing more work than the calves. If that's you, maybe choose something else. But if not, this can be a really good option. So number 1, knee to wall stretch, great for the ankles and the calves. Now, next one is the leg swing. You've probably seen this before. It's very, very simple. But basically, this is a great one just to mobilize the hamstrings a little bit. All you're going to be doing, standing on one leg, literally just kicking one straight leg up to the sky, up and down, up and down, up and down. Very, very simple, but just gets the hamstrings loose, gets a bit of blood moving around. Very, very, very effective. Now, 2 key things for this is basically with this one, the first few reps you do it, the hamstrings can be pretty tight. So basically you're just kicking up until you feel just a little bit of tug on the hamstrings. You're not absolutely forcing yourself and absolutely pushing yourself into quite uncomfortable levels, but basically just start off slow and just feel the hamstring tug. And then as you do more and more reps, just go a little bit higher, a little bit higher, a little bit higher. And on top of that, as we're going through here, just stop when you do feel like let me just grab it there. When you do feel like the hamstring is kind of tugging, stop there. One tendency some people will do is they'll get to this point, then they'll try to go a little bit further, but the hamstrings won't be flexible enough. So they end up just doing a big arch in the back. We don't really need that. We don't need to hyperextend the back here. It's really just a hammy stretch. So basically just kick up till you feel it and down. So that's number 2. Now, number 3 is a great one just to do the hips and specifically the hip flexors. Like a lot of the hip, like the muscles in the front of the hips, and sometimes a lot of people are familiar with stretches, but it involves us getting on the ground. This is a really good option just for staying on your feet to work through it. So basically what involves on one leg, and you're literally just doing nice, big, long circles and just circling around that hip joint and going nice and nice and long. Now for this one, you probably want to hold on to something for balance and just make sure you're going here. And then make sure with this, it's not just like doing little circles and just not really doing anything, but you're being intentional. You're really trying to feel that stretch as you come through. Again, as you loosen up, you're just doing a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and that can be really effective. So basically when it comes down to it, that's typically my favorite warm-up. You do the knee to wall, 10 to 15 reps on each side, the leg swing, 10 to 15 reps on each side, the standing hip opener, 10 to 15 reps on each side. Do that on each side. That'll take you 5 minutes and that'll kind of cover most of your bases that most hikers need to cover. Very, very, very simple. Now, a few extra bits and pieces, some hikers will be like, you know what, my shoulder's a bit tight, my neck's a bit tight, or whatever it may be. So if you're in that situation, you may just throw in an extra upper body one. Not everyone does need to do upper body. It's not super common, but if you're aware there's sort of tightness around here and you like to loosen that off, just throw in an extra one there. And that typically covers most people. Now, when it comes down to it, that's what I get most people doing. There are a few people out there who are like, you know what, actually, I like to spend a little bit more time before hikes doing some stuff. Or maybe I'm always the first one out of camp when I'm doing overnighters and I kind of like something to fill my day out. So if you do have a little extra time and you want to add bits and pieces, I'll share a few extra exercises that I quite like to use. In all honesty, these are not necessary for everyone. So, these 3 ones cover most of your bases. This is pretty good. These extra ones are just if you have more time and inclination to do them. And these ones do involve you kind of being on the ground or seated. So in all honesty, these are probably more practical for like overnighters or multi-dayers. So when you're actually in camp, when you can get a nice space to do this stuff, or you can do it in your tent or whatever it may be. If you're just doing a day hike and, you at the trailhead and trying to do these, it's sometimes not super practical. So these are probably more for overnighters or multi-dayers. So really, really simple. These ones are just doing some self-massage and self-release. So what we're trying to do here is just basically, a lot of hikers are very familiar with foam rollers and have used that in the past. What we're essentially doing here on the trail is just replacing a foam roller with a water bottle. So this first one's just a little calf release, very, very simple. You're basically getting a foam roller, you're lining up under your calves, you're just sitting on the ground and you're literally just rolling up and down on the calf. You'll notice pretty quickly that does get a bit of pressure on the calves, and you're literally just rolling up and down, just having big breaths in, big breaths out. Very, very, very simple. Now, some people may try this and they're like, this is good, but I struggle to hold myself up in my upper body. Maybe my wrist gets sore or my shoulders get sore. In that situation, what you can do is just kind of just sit on a spot. Let me find it in the video. Yeah, literally just sit on a spot. You're not actually holding yourself up, but you're just sitting in a spot and you just point and flex the toes and point and flex the toe, or you roll across it like this. And you can literally just do that. As opposed to actually rolling yourself up and down, you're just sitting on it and then just moving the foot as necessary. And you might do this for like 60 to 90 seconds on each side. You don't have to spend a load amount of time on it, but that's very effective. Now, another similar one is like a quadricep release. So this is basically working just the front of the thighs, the quads, which can often be quite tight. So again, this is just getting your water bottle, literally just rolling up and down on that quads. So going from the top of the knee to the bottom of the hip, and basically just working through that. Now, again, if it's a little bit uncomfortable rolling up and down, you can literally just sit in a spot and do what I'm doing here. Just flex and extend the knee, and flex and extend the knee. And again, you might do this for like 60 to 90 seconds. And then the last one is just a little glute stretch. So the standing hip open is great for getting like the front of the hips and sometimes the inner leg. This glute stretch is kind of getting a little bit more behind in the back of the glute or the piriformis. So this one, you need like a chair or something. You basically sit in a chair, one foot across the other, and you literally just lean forward, feel a stretch in that back glute, and then come up. And you're literally just coming in and out, in and out, in and out. You might do that like 10 or 15 times or something like that. Very, very straightforward. So basically putting this all together, warm-ups when it comes down to it can be really beneficial for this sort of subsection of hikers who may need them. What I typically recommend is if you are looking at exploring this, just come up with a base routine, which you'll do every time. So basically take those 3 exercises I mentioned before, or put together a routine of 4 or 5. Don't do a different thing every single day, but just have something simple that you know what's coming up, that you don't have to think about it. Even if it's like, first thing in the morning where you're just absolutely brain fogged out or anything like that, you can just do this, and just bang it out. Now, if you are planning on doing these warm-ups, a few key points to get the most out of it. Number one, is if you're on day hikes, get to the trailhead early. So if you're going with a friend, if you're going with a group, you're meeting people at the trailhead, get there early and do this before people come. Just because there's nothing worse than actually people just waiting for you as you're stretching and you feel rushed, you feel hurried, you end up just skipping the exercise or whatever it may be. Get to the trailhead intentionally 10 minutes early, get this done. Or if you're on an overnighter or a multi-dayer, get your gear packed up early, and get it all done. And then just while everyone's doing their own thing, you go through your warm-ups. So ultimately, we just want to make sure people aren't waiting on you, because this can be just one thing that can just frustrate people, make you a little bit self-conscious or whatever it may be. What I recommend is giving yourself a reminder system. So how are you going to remind yourself to warm up before you start moving? Some people will put little reminders on their phones. Some people have do little post-it notes to themselves. Some people have a little buddy system where you both warm up together, whatever it may be, just something to remind yourself in the morning. And also communicate with your partners. Like if you are doing a routine, say you're doing the trailhead and people are there, just go, hey, I'm just going to spend 5 minutes warming up if that's okay. It's only going to take 5 minutes. Don't mind me. As long as you say that, that's the main thing. Sometimes if people are waiting there, they don't really know how long this routine's going for. They can get a little bit antsy and start making you feel a little bit nervous. The same thing with the overnighters. If you're going to do this, just say, hey, I'm actually going to pack up early. I'm just going to do a little warm up. No pressure on you. You don't have I'm going to be packed up, but you just take your time and do your thing. And that way, it's not like sometimes people will get in a race, they'll see you're all packed up and then they'll feel like they're holding you back, and then they'll get in a race and then they'll sort of be ready and they'll be ready to go. And then you are not ready to go. And again, it can sometimes lead to a little bit of conflict or just, annoyance. So we don't want that. Also, number 2, be intentional with the movements. If you're taking the time to do these warm-ups, don't just do, go through the bare minimum. Just don't go through stuff and be distracted. Be intentional with the movements. Start off slow, slowly do a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Stay focused for those 5 minutes. If you're not really going to pay attention, just start walking, in all honesty. But if you can be intentional with it, they can be really useful. And ultimately, when it comes down to this, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Ultimately, just use any of these exercises which feel good. If you do one of these exercises and you're like, I get absolutely nothing from that, skip it. It's not going to be magical for you if you don't feel anything from it. You may just be super mobile in that area already, or whatever it may be. So do what feels good and forget the rest. So hopefully that just gives you a little bit of an overview around warm-ups for hiking. It's a pretty simple subject, but hopefully that area does help a few people. Now, ultimately, warming up for hiking is a little thing. This whole channel is all about training for hiking and getting fit, strong, and resilient for your adventures. So ultimately, if you were looking for a little bit of help, you've come across this, video and you're like, you know what? I like the idea of getting some specific help with my training for hiking so I can get in the best possible position. If you want to learn a little bit more, I would love to chat with you. Ultimately, through our online personal training for hiking, we'll have packages which include a custom and personalized workout program to get you ready for anything the trail may throw at you, covering things like strength training, cardio, hiking programming, recovery mobility, all personalized around you, your life, your needs, and your situation. On top of that, through our programs, we do put a big emphasis into education around all the different peripheral factors which can make or break an adventure. Things like nutrition, recovery, self-care, mental strength, and a bunch of other things. And also make sure you have the coaching support and accountability to keep you on track. Make sure anything that comes up, you've got someone in your corner to work around it. Now, if you did want to learn a little bit more and check out our training, you can go to summitstrength.com.au/online. And on there, there's a big video, talks about our programs. And from there, if it does sound like something you want to explore a little bit more, there's a link on that page where you can book a call with our team and we can have a bit of a chat and ultimately just see, if one of our packages may be right for you. So if you want to learn a little bit more, go to summitstrength.com.au/online and we can take it from there. But aside from that, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I hope you got a little bit out of it, and I hope this helps a few people who may find some good benefits from warming up before their adventures. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.